Hello everyone, and welcome to Fable Iratus, Lord of the Dead. Before you get your hopes up, this is not the beginning of a new series. This is going to be a rather boring video looking at the summer update that just hit. You can see right here, what's new? I suppose the most catching part is new skins, which you will unlock them permanently if you log in between June 25th and July 9th. So, get on that and they'll be yours forever. I am, however, beginning a new series soon. On the 28th, I believe, of June, we'll begin the Meme Ascendance. I do have a teaser out on the channel. Not my finest work, but it serves its purpose. So, let me know if you have a meme build which you would like to see brought into reality. But enough of the future and of the potentials. We're here to talk about the update that hit, that I perfectly calculated my series in between. Actually, I had no idea this was coming, and it caught me completely off guard. But here we go. First things first, before we get into the game and talk about all the juicy changes. For brand new players, in the past, after you completed the tutorial, Cakewalk and More Pain difficulties were available, and Good Always Wins was locked behind a conditional. Now, Good Always Wins will be available after you complete the tutorial right away, so you can start working on unlocking the Eternal Harvest. Additionally, More Pain and Cakewalk have had their checkpoint mode altered. It's now save mode, which will allow you to press F5 to quick save when you're in Iratus' lair, and you can press F5 to return to that quick save when you're not in the lair. I'm assuming that's how that works. Additionally, there were quite a few bug changes, and one of them has to do with the scaling of the difficulty of Eternal Harvest. Apparently it was bugged, and there was like this huge difficulty spike. I talked about it briefly before, but that has been modified. How? I'm not entirely sure. But, yeah, it's been fixed, supposedly. Also, the other bug fixes are that Event Battle now isn't moving the map focus on the squad. Don't ask me what that means. But it's a thing now. Or not a thing anymore. Tab when switching targets now isn't rotate. Again, not quite sure on the language there. Failed Experiment Deafening Bellow can now be dispelled. Failed Experiment is the mob on the 4th floor that hits like a truck, the golem looking thing. Rogue now attacks from the stance. I'm assuming his invisible stance where he gains a bazillion evasion. Minion items Plagued, Organ Body, and Crimson Chains. These are the unique items for the Infested and the Blood Phantasm. They will now correctly trigger on incoming attacks, so they both do things when the person gets hit. All good bug fixes. But I had prepared a little demo for us to look at all of the changes. Now, first things first, I know what you're excited for. The skins. The Mummy, the Lost Soul, the Shade, and the Blood Phantasm have all received new skins, so let's take a look. For the Mummy. Moha. I like this skin, actually. You'll notice that the recolors from, like, the supporter pack are just, recolors. But these new skins actually modify the model. Modify the model in some way. So, that's nifty. I like it a lot. The Mummy is actually my least favorite, I think. For the Lost Soul, we have a Dryad of sorts. Interesting. She's pretty. She was always pretty. Now she's just a tree hugger pretty. For the Shade, I actually thought this was a race skin at first, because it looks like this. It's awesome. I love it. More. And for the Blood Phantasm, instead of just getting gold tinges, we are now a new color. Also got a haircut. I have to get one soon. Not looking forward to it. So those are the 4 new skins. Once again, if you log in between now and July 9th, they will be unlocked for you for all of eternity. So, let's begin, shall we? I have the patch notes before me, and I'm literally just going to go down the list. So we begin with the Master of Mediocrity, the Skeleton. His stance has been reworked to, instead of putting him in a stance, increasing his chance to be hit by enemies, significantly, quote-unquote, he will now mark a minion, and any minion Any attack that hits that minion is redirected to the skeleton. Just as before, the base gives plus 10 armor and plus 10 resistance. The upgrade Mystic Fortitude will give plus 14 armor and resistance, and the Unnerving Fortitude will make it so the skeleton reflects stress damage, dealing 100% stress damage. This is an interesting change. It gives you more Warden-like options than just the Black Widow and her cocoon. So, more options is always good. We'll see if it has any actual effect, though. Again, the skeleton, kind of a bizarre character. I have a few ideas, though, but we'll see. The Bride of Iratus received a single change. Her stance, Overwatch, and all of its upgrades had its damage increased from 55% of her attack to 60% of her attack. And that was it. Great. The Overwatch build was already a thing. Now it's just 5% better. Okay. The Dark Knight received a rather large change. And that is that his stance and both of its upgrades, Futile Hopes, No Tomorrow, and Dashed Hopes, now can be used from the 3rd and 4th position. That is a change and a half. Because his other stress damage ability can be used from the 3rd position, this makes the Dark Knight a feasible 3rd or even 4th character positioning character. Because he can also use his support ability, in the 3rd and 4th slot. So, that adds some options, doesn't it? Because the Dark Knight's biggest weakness on higher difficulties is he can't survive as a frontliner. He's just not going to make it. Even though he can't be crit and he does have some high levels of armor and resistance, he's not like the Bone Golem or the Black Widow. He's just not going to make it. So this gives him an interesting option as an offensive type character, which is how I've used him in the past. Pop into No Tomorrow and then debuff everything to hell and back. Interesting change. I look forward to testing it. For the Banshee, she also received only a minor change. Her upgrade for Dread has been modified from +2 each upgrade to +3 each upgrade. So technically, she received 2 more Dread. And yeah, that was her upgrade. Good change, I guess. It makes the Banshee better at what she does. For the Infested, our hypercarry of the last series. His feature has been reworked. When an Infested dies, all enemies lose sanity in the amount of 200% of his Dread, instead of 40. Just 40 sanity, I think it was. So, they made it stronger if he dies. Big whoop-de-doo. I'm not a huge fan of on death effects, because that means something died, and that's scary all the time. Yeah, that was the Infested chains. Now let's get into a bit of a meatier change with the Mummy. The abilities Hex Beam, Hex Spear, and Vengeance Beam have all been reworked. I don't like this change. It removed the feature, the best part of it, which was deals additional damage if Mummy has a debuff. With Vengeance Beam, good old Moffdet was hitting like a truck in the last series, but now the change is that the beam will curse all targets for 1 turn, and the Hex Spear does increased stress damage on the first hit, just like it did before, and the Vengeance Beam will now curse the target for 2 turns. The damage remains the same, but the curse lasts 2 turns instead of just 1 turn. I feel like this is worse now. Feels freaking bad. I love the Vengeance Beam so much. And the damage for Hex Beam and Vengeance Beam was nerfed from 30% to 25%, and the Hex Spear was nerfed from 45% to 35%. So I feel like they just nerfed the Spear. It's been modified, of course. It's probably better for like debuff teams, but still. I loved the Spear the way it was. Feels bad. Those are the changes for the Mummy. They overhauled the Spear again. Not a fan of it, but we'll just have to see how that one works out, huh? Next, we have the Lich, the first character on this list to have a new mechanic. Oh, I'm so excited for this mechanic. Especially since it works perfectly with the meme build. But The change is that sacrifice and cannon fodder, so the baseline of this no longer spends an action. You used to have to get the cannon fodder upgrade for that to happen. The amount of vigor restored for cannon fodder is... what? Sacrifice amount changed from 40 to 20. Okay. Cannon fodder from 50 to 25. That got drastically reduced. And Cruel Sacrifice has been reworked. It used to restore 20 vigor and not cost an action, I think. And now, it will immediately reset cooldowns on Iratus' talents, making it possible to use them again during this round. Doesn't spend an action. The potential here is absolutely insane. And I intend... there are a few more characters that got this mechanic. I intend to use this mechanic for a pure destruction build. I'm gonna do it. I'm mad enough to do it. So we'll see how we can make this work. But I'm very excited for this mechanic, and it, as I mentioned, has some remarkable potential with Iratus' myriad buff abilities or crowd control abilities. Anything that your crazy little mind can think of, this can make it do better. Rain of Fire Armageddon in Bedlam, that is this Wrath ability in both of its upgrades, had its Wrath cost changed from 55 to 35. As if this wasn't strong enough. Now it's cheaper. And Reanimate Dark Resurrection, so Reanimate is the baseline and Dark Resurrection is the empowered version, had its Wrath cost increased from 65 to 75. They made it harder. And the cheap body also was increased from 50 Wrath to 60 Wrath. Does that mean this was really strong and I was just sleeping on it the entire time? That's what that tells me. Well, that was it for the Lich. The Lich got some good changes. I'm curious for Cruel Sacrifice. Again, I've always hated the kill your own ally builds, but maybe this was enough to get me to play one. Next, we have the Headhunter, who got one change, and it has to do with Sensum and all its upgrades. It now moves the target to a random position. That's it. Great. I still don't know why you would ever use this, but it's now an option. For the Shade. It's finally happened, my friends. Finally. Gloom Claw has been changed. It used to be that for each 1% of missing sanity that the enemy had, they would take that much damage in vigor. So if they were missing 100 sanity, the Shade would then deal 100 vigor damage. You could use this with the Finger of Death, which also received a change. Perfect segue. To instantly one-shot things. Now what it does is that for each 1% sanity that the target is missing, you'll inflict magical damage equal to 400% of the Shade's attack. Which can be a lot. Oh wait, no. I read this incorrectly. Sorry. For each 1% sanity that the target is missing, inflict magical damage. When the target reaches 0 sanity, they receive 400% of the Shade's magical attack. So the way this works then... It's actually a good question. So in the patch notes, it says for each 1% missing sanity, target receives magical damage in the amount of 4 to 5% Shade attack. This is worded weird. So Void Claws is the same thing, except when reaching 0 sanity, they receive 500% damage. For each inflict magical damage. This one, this removes all wards, just like last time. Huh. So it's mostly the same. 4 to 5% of our damage is not much. But it's for each 1% of sanity. Interesting. So this is not a nerf? Especially since look how high we can scale our attack. It's a modification of it. I don't know how I feel about this. It's gonna come down to... I don't know. It'll probably be close to equal, right? Like, you have to math this out, and I haven't mathed it out. I probably should have before I began recording, but I didn't. Whoopsie daisy. Anyway, it's been modified. It looks like they don't want you to be able to just insta-burst something down, but they still have the incentive to reduce sanity to 0, and then you can deal just massive damage. I wonder if the target has 0 sanity, will it inflict magical damage and then the 400%? There's too much to test with this. So, it's been changed. Now back to the Finger of Death. Target loses. Interesting. I thought this got nerfed. Target loses 50%, 10% for bosses, of its maximum vigor and sanity. Removes all buffs from the target. Target loses all blocks and wards. Ignores ward. Spell power additionally increases damage dealt by 0.15%. Bosses, 0.03%. I saw the change here in the patch notes, and I thought this got nerfed. But it's the same, except now spell power makes it better instead of cheaper. That's an interesting decision. I don't know if I agree with that decision. I've been saying Finger of Death needed to be nerfed for, like, ever. Curious. Well, we won't be using Finger of Death, but there's the change. I'm curious to see how high people can stack this. Because it's still a one-shot with the Shade if you stack it high enough. Okay, well, that was the Shade and my lingering, unknown assessment of the change to Gloomclaw. Gloomclaw needed a change, but we'll see if this is the change that it needed. Next is the Vampire, one of the weirdest characters. Her ability, Bloody Offering, has been reworked along with all of its upgrades. This is one of the other reset mechanics. Immediately resets cooldowns on Iratus' talents, making it possible to use them again during this round. The Vampire loses 30 vigor. So then the question becomes, can we chain this together? Like, for example, open up with a huge destruction spell, Bloody Offering, do something again, Cruel Sacrifice, do something again, or just like 4 vampires, all Bloody Offering. Well, the one in the first position can't, but you get the point. That's what I want to test. That's what I want to see. And that's why we're doing the meme sentence for ultimate memes. So be sure to leave your memes below. I need all of the memes. Can't miss out on any of them. But anyway, back to Bloody Offering. It used to restore mana and wrath to Iratus in exchange for 10 vigor. Now resets the cooldowns for 30. Mesmerize will additionally restore 15 mana. And Hypnosis will additionally give 40 wrath. 30 vigor is pretty expensive on the health pool of 95. But, we'll see, yeah? It used to be minus 10. That was much more reasonable. But I suppose being able to reset your talents is pretty freaking strong. Greater Auspex has been modified. It will decrease accuracy by 40. It used to be 30, so that was a buff. And Bloody Visions, target loses 40 evasion. It used to be 20 evasion. Ho ho. That is a big deal. What's the highest evasion in the game? I mean, besides the rogue being in his stupid stance. It's like 57, right? That's pretty good. That's pretty good. That was the vampire change. Good changes. It improves her ability to be an ancillary character, which I think was already like her meta type position. I'm curious to see how this feels. Onward. To the Blood Phantasm. The Blood Phantasm, I think, received the most changes, and they're all good. So here we go, shall we? The Blood Phantasm's Q, W, this ability, Phantasmal Assault, Phantasmal Carnage, and Phantasmal Blitz have been modified. It used to restore 6, 9, or 6 vigor for each successful attack, and now it is 45% of the damage dealt by default. For Phantasmal Blitz, it is 30%, because it increases the actual damage of the ability. And then Phantasmal Carnage increases the healing amount to 75%. This used to be really dull, in that no matter how hard you were able to hit, no matter how hard you could connect, it was always 6 and 6, or 9 and 9 if you went with this one. So this actually opens up a potential for frontline Blood Phantasm. It's there. I can almost taste it. So I'm curious to see how this works as well. The Phantasmal Blitz damage was changed from 65% to 75%. Deal even more damage. You'll have to do some math here. I'm pretty sure the Phantasmal Carnage would do more healing. I was saying the math you need to do is, could you scale attack high enough that 75% of your attack makes it so that 30% of the damage you deal heals more than 75% of the damage you deal of 50%. Does that make sense? Anyway, you get the picture. Some math required. Not my strong suit. Grand Transfusion has been modified. This is his stance. By default, when receiving direct damage, the Blood Phantasm will restore vigor to all allies, not himself, equal to a portion of his attack. The Grand Transfusion now marks an ally, and there's a 100% chance to redirect any attack that targets the marked minion to the Blood Phantasm. And when receiving direct damage, restores vigor equal to the Phantasm's attack, but not to himself. So, this is again another Warden-like ability besides the Skeleton and the Black Widow, which is an interesting approach, I guess. You can also make it so this forcibly triggers transfusion to heal your friends up. I still think Rage Injection's better. I don't know. Of course, it depends on what you're trying to go for, right? But it's interesting. More options is always good. And the Aura of Retribution has been modified. This marks a minion. It used to make it so... It used to make it so...
Perfection takes time and proper ingredients.
Thanks, Iratus. It used to make it so that enemies would attack the marked minion more frequently. That's also saying here that the duration was changed from 2 to 3 turns. Oh, this Aura. This one. Yep, there it is. Not mark, Aura. Yeah, that's a change. The feature has also been reworked. Was Aura the only one that made it so they hit more? So this increased the duration to 3 turns. This increases the damage. Okay. This is now interesting with all of the redirections available. Well, it was always kind of interesting, but you know what I mean? I need to stop saying that word. It doesn't mean anything half the time. Anyway, the feature's been reworked. Now the death of the Blood Phantasm restores vigor equal to 200% of his attack to his allies instead of 33 vigor. Again, they changing a flat amount to a percentage of something. I think that's a good change. The Blood Phantasm definitely is now encouraged to put points into attack between the changes to the Phantasmal Assault, the Retribution thingy, which has always kind of existed, and the Grand Transfusion. Whereas normally, well, I don't want to say normally, because I used to do this as well with the chains. Chains are good. Uh-oh, I found a bug. There's supposed to be text here. Is this the one that deals... Yeah, this is the one that deals more damage based on thingies. Well, at least I know what it does. Hopefully that wasn't changed too. Hopefully this is just like a... What do you call it? Description error. But yeah, that was the Blood Phantasm. I think his changes are great. Good job. We might see him appear in the meme Ascendance. Next, a character that received a decent amount of changes as well is down here, the Lost Soul. The Lost Soul's offensive upgrades have been increased. Both her attack and dread used to scale with 3 points, or used to gain 3 bonus when you level them up. Now it gains 4, which is good. What else do I say about that? It's good. For her healing ability, the Benevolent Spirit, restoring vigor and damage dealt changed from 60% of her attack, both dealt and healed, to 80% of her attack, both healed and damage dealt. scaling up the heal faster. Better. Price of Glory. Restoring Vigor, this one, yes, it has been changed from 80% healing, 60% damage to 100% healing and 80% damage. And Peace Eternal has been changed from 60-40 healing damage to 80-40. I still think it's probably a good idea to go for Price of Glory. I mean, Price of Glory does incentivize having ward generation somehow, some way, but there are a few ways to work around that. And Substitute World has been reworked. That is this one. Removes... it was given the feature of immediately resetting cooldowns on Iratus' talents, making it possible to use them again during this round. Sound familiar? I think that's all three of them now. So the Lich, the Vampire, and the Lost Soul. And its Wrath cost was increased from 35 to 50, and it still has its original purpose of giving +1 attack and +1 dread to all minions for each buff or debuff removed from all enemies. It's pretty good. Pretty good. Consume Hope has not changed. So yeah. The Lost Soul became stronger because she needed some love. Next we have good changes. Good changes for the Ghoul. An underutilized character in our series. Just a Bite is the ability that heals herself. For both this and Degustation, is that even a word? Damage dealt to an ally has been changed from 20 to 24 to 15 to 18. Isn't that nice? Is that always 15 to 18 no matter how high you scale your attack? Because that being in red text makes me feel like it scales with attack. The Ghoul restores 50% vigor though. That's pretty good. And Shared Satiation. Damage dealt to an ally changed from 10 to 12 to 15 to 18, so they just normalized it. And the Restored Wrath has been changed from 45 to 50. Being able to generate 50 Wrath instantly is pretty good. But I don't think you take this, usually. The heal seems way better, right? I'm not that crazy? I might be crazy. Just a Bite. Restored Vigor changed from 30% to 25%. That's not what it says here. And Degustation 30% to 50%, yeah. So this was drastically buffed. I knew it was buffed. I knew it. Now, one thing I'm a huge fan of with these changes, I didn't even read this whole healing change, which is a good change. But Lunch Break has been reworked. It removed the feature that enemies killed by this attacker don't leave parts. That's what made this so undesirable. I don't want to say bad, because it's amazing. But undesirable, we'll say. It used to not do that. Then they added that. They swapped it from Butcher, which used to not leave parts, and they put it on the Wrath ability. And once they did that, I never used the Ghoul again. Because one of the strategies is to use percentage-based damage, like the Shade's Cloud Trap and the Vampire's Berserk, and then, like, literally turn one, eat them with the Ghoul. I'm so glad they changed that. So that feature has been removed. Lunch Break and Happy Meal. Vigor amount requiring to cast changed from 30% to 25%, of course, on the enemy, because when they have low health, this is basically an execute. And Early Lunch, vigor amount required to cast changed from 50% to 35%. They just made it a little harder to use it. This one, yeah, Happy Meal makes it super strong. It's actually insane. The Ghoul gains 25 vigor, 16 attack, 16 dread, 12 luck, 12 evasion. And then, of course, she can eat it. if she's dying. It's pretty good. I plan to make good use of the Ghoul in the meme Ascendancy because I have been neglecting her.
Am I in the mood for terror or lethality today?
¿Por qué no los dos? So that is it for all of the creation changes. If you're still with me, hello. Thanks for listening. Hopefully I'm not that insane. I liked them all. Again, the Shade one is going to leave some math questions, which are not questions I'm in the capacity to answer right now. But if you have any idea, let me know. Okay, so moving on to talent changes, there were 2 that are worth talking about. I already touched on one, which was the Finger of Death. They just changed how the spell power works. It used to decrease the cost of the spell because the spell was already friggin' broken, and now it will increase the damage that it deals. I feel like that's overkill. Usually just instantly dealing 50% of their vigor and sanity was enough. But, you know, if you're going to have a 70 mana spell, you might as well make it a one-shot KO. I don't think it's physically possible to get enough spell power to do 100% damage, but if it is, I want to see it. The other spell that was changed is one that we played with for the very first time in the last series, and that is Battle Eternal. Instead of, it used to fully recover the vigor of all units. Now, all units will recover 50 vigor, and the spell power will increase vigor restoration by 1%. It was made worse. Although it was decreased in cost. It used to cost 100 mana, and now it costs 85 mana. But, I mean, yeah, don't like it anymore. I used to, but I don't anymore. To be fair, did I ever even use it? I picked it up, I'm like, oh yeah, this will be great if we ever need it. And then never pressed it. That sounds like me. As for bosses and enemy changes, this is the last thing that there is in the patch notes. Look at art. What? What? I totally have the Humanorium for this. You've got to be kidding me. Is the Humanorium difficulty based? No way. I'm a little upset now, because I don't have this one either. I'm going to check while I start talking about it. I'd actually be kind of upset if they got rid of my Humanorium. The whole point was completing the Pokédex. Well, maybe it is difficulty based. So, the Ascended Magister, the last boss of the game, in case you haven't seen him yet, his third ability can now be used from the first position. This is his stance. At the start of his turn, deals damage to all minions equal to Iratus' Wrath. For each point of Wrath, the Grand Magister deals 2% magical damage. Iratus loses all gained Wrath. I was right to interrupt this ability. His feature has also been modified, and instead of gaining 10% damage until the end of combat, and 10% reduced damage, sorry, I had to think of how to word this. My brain was just like, it is now dependent on the difficulty. It is, I'm going to go ahead and assume here because it doesn't say. For Cakewalk and More Pain, 5%. For Good Always Wins, 10%. And for Eternal Harvest, 15%. That's my assumption here. So he was made a little bit harder, kinda. The Monster Slayer, whose token I do have, his first ability now additionally recovers sanity. This is really... Oh, they all remove buffs, duh. So, give a random buff for 1 turn, restore Vigor and Sanity equal to 100% of damage dealt, all attacks with no armor and resistance, removes all buffs from the target. Is this the one that rotates? This has to be the rotating one, right? Okay. So his leech thing that we completely ignored in the last playthrough now restores sanity as well as vigor. That makes it a little more annoying to do a sanity build against him, but it's also the same as doing a vigor build against him. So they just kind of balanced him out to counter sanity cheese. Makes sense. All enemies. Enemy stats have been slightly increased on floors 4 and 5 on all difficulty levels. That kind of makes sense. I've always felt that the 4th and 5th floor were kind of easy. Like, the 3rd floor has some really tough fights. And even in it's apparent in the last series too. Like, we struggled a little bit on the 3rd floor. Then 4th floor, and we just came out swinging. So yeah, I think that was needed. On all difficulties is the important bit there. And enemy stats have been globally adjusted For Eternal Harvest, the difficulty now raises more smoothly with game progress. You may remember hearing me say that Eternal Harvest 3 was widely considered to be the last bastion of fairness in the difficulty concern, because 4 and 5 were just, I don't want to say impossible, but very hard.
Alive is this exciting. I might as well climb back into my tomb.
Sorry, Iratus. But, yeah, so I'm curious to see how that's changed as well. But, as I mentioned, our next playthrough will be on more pain so that we can do all of the memery shenanigans possible. And that was it for the summer update that completely, I was totally calculated. Absolutely. Didn't catch me off guard at all. Just a quick reminder, make sure if you do have the game that you log in between now and July 9th to permanently gain access to the 4 new skins that I showed off earlier. They're beautiful. And, yeah, I'm going to be using them. So it says make sure down below as well, if you have a meme build, make sure you let me know, because I want to try out all the memes. I do have a general theme, a plan in store that involves this, but I'm going to try and do as much as humanly possible with all the parts, brains, and items that we have access to. So thank you all for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this incredibly long, incredibly boring overview of all of the updates, but I decided that it was better to do a standalone video because some of these were significant changes, such as the modification to the new mechanic, well, the addition of the new mechanic, and modifications to abilities to accommodate that, and some of the characters got significantly more useful, I think, so I'm looking forward to trying them out, and having fun along the way. Thanks again for watching, I hope that you enjoyed, and I will see you when the meme sentence begins.